We are at 10, and we do have a quorum, but I'll still read off roll call once we have everything.
Morning, I'd like to call over the MACOG meeting for March 8th, 2023, starting with roll call.
Good morning, I'll read roll. Please let us know if you are present. Councilperson Chester Bohannon.
Present.
Commissioner Mike Burrows.
Present.
District Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Councilperson Dwight Fish.
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming.
Yes.
Councilperson Doug Graham. Commissioner Groninger.
Here.
Councilperson Groninger.
Here.
Councilperson Hammond. She informed us today she wouldn't be able to make it this morning. Councilperson Greg Hicksaball.
Here.
Mayor Jenkins, District Deputy Commissioner Johnson, Mayor Mueller, Mayor Robertson, Councilman Mark Root.
Here.
Mayor Mark Center.
Here.
Mayor Jeremy Stutzman, Mayor Joseph Tolmer, Commissioner Susie Wyrick,
Present.
Mayor Dave Wood. A number of the mayors did inform us ahead of time that there is a AIM legislative lunch or dinner tonight. So many of them are in Indianapolis, but we do have a quorum of members present.
Okay, minutes for the March or February 8th meeting, please.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And Deb, financial report. There she stands.
Good morning, everyone. You all should have the January 2023 financial report. At the end of fiscal year to date of January 31st, we're at $4,339,288.68 in expenses. This is almost 50% of our annual budget. At the end of January, we have a cash balance of $2,780,414.89. Our cash disbursements for the month of January was $812,895.69. Are there any questions over the January financial report?
I don't have any questions over the January report, so we'll make a motion to approve, but I have a question on general investments. So a lot of organizations that I'm part of, we're looking at different CDs. As of yesterday, I think the 3 to 5 month CD was one of the top paying. So I don't know, I haven't heard.
Yeah,
look at that.
It's a
Yeah.
great point.
It's something that we've talked about recently looking into now that rates are back up again. We used to have CDs in the past, kind of ranging from like 3 months to a year, maybe some a little bit over, but James had recently mentioned like, hey, why don't we check into this again? So
We're currently shopping around.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, we had shopped for a new bank, and we ended up with Lake City. And we had a great interest rate. And then COVID happened, interest rates tanked there just with our regular accounts, and they had to change those things. And so now kind of coming post out of that, as interest rates started to go back up, we decided that
Our
we're gonna,
regular account rate is gone
our
back
regular
to
account
zero.
rate has gone back up, but now
I think over
it's
50.
where CDs are competing at a higher rate than our regular rate. So we are gonna shop around.
Perfect. Great. So motion still stands.
Second.
We have motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. James, on behalf of Mayor Jenkins.
Yes, Mayor Jenkins, our secretary, let me know that he's filed his report for the February modifications. For those who aren't aware, February modifications, these are items that the board has given staff authority to make changes to various projects in our improvement plan based on usually small changes. There might be entry error or small financial increases on projects, changing them to a different fiscal year. These are items that you all have given us authority to do, but we like to make sure that you know what we've done. And these are included in your packet, as well as they can be found online. I can answer any questions, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us on staff after the meeting. That would conclude the report.
Okay. Any old business, James?
No old business today.
New business.
Yep, Ally will be presenting our transportation resolutions.
Morning, Ally.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
So our first set of amendments to our transportation improvement program this month fall under transportation resolutions 8-23. So item A here is a locally initiated project sponsored by the city of Goshen. It's at College Avenue from US 33 to Norfolk Southern Railroad. This is phase 1 of a 3-phase project that we are currently funding. The work type is an auxiliary lane, 2-way left turn lane project. And we will be shifting construction funding from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26, largely due to our funding availability. And then item B is related to the same project, but this is just in reference to the pedestrian bridge over Horn Ditch. So NDOT prefers that bridges within projects have their own DES number, which is why this is on its own DES number. But again, we'll be shifting construction funding for this from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. And did want to note that normally a shift in fiscal years can be processed as a modification, meaning that it wouldn't need board approval. But because we're shifting into fiscal year 26 is considered illustrative in the deck, so it's kind of just there for informational purposes. So this item does require an amendment. So happy to take any questions on either of these items. Otherwise, I'd be asking for your approval of transportation resolution 8-23.
Motion approved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion seconding for the discussion.
Yes.
Good, sir.
Since we're going to be talking about several of these, could you explain how what's the mechanism for shoving some of these back a year? Because we're getting several of these that are moving from 23 to 24 and so forth.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah, so we recently had a call for projects where we were trying to program out some projects. And with that, we kind of had to shift around some projects that we currently have programmed. So this shift, for example, is largely due to our funding availability. So we get roughly $16 million every fiscal year, and it's kind of a use it or lose it basis. We are kind of over programmed in fiscal year 25, so decided to shift this to 26 to pull something else into 25. So it's kind of big shifting, and it also depends a lot on kind of the project development timelines and if they're hitting things, you know, and that's kind of been backed up in their review processes. So that definitely contributes to shifts to the fund.
And to expand on that, you know, we make those changes in consultation with the local government. So it's not like we're necessarily dictating to the city of Goshen, oh, hey, this has to shift out. Like they're a partner in making that decision. Also with a series of Goshen projects over the last month or two that you've seen, they also reshuffled their priorities, where a project that was originally intended to be later in the fiscal years, like fiscal 28, it was going to be more of a phase 3. They've now decided based on different people decisions that needs to be more of the phase 1 priority. And so some things got shuffled around from that.
So it's more of a regional, local distribution reshuffling versus a federal changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
The theoretical big side of the federal is that with the infrastructure bill, we got more money. So hypothetically, we could do projects quicker. And so we did pull some projects from a design side in earlier, but that probably won't be realized because inflation has led to cost increases to the point that really the additional money that we're getting is going to making projects whole because costs have gone up 40%.
Yeah, and I just didn't want it to squeeze something else out if we're shifting funds around, but I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question because here it says estimated cost to complete is $5,107,000. Is that for combined both of them as the same amount, or each one is separate?
Yeah, that's combined for the entire project.
For both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it includes typically the right of way and the preliminary engineering. It's kind of that total cost for the whole project.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Great. And then moving on to transit resolution 9-23. So item A is related to our interurban trolley in Elkhart County. This is for the purchase of expansion buses of 30 feet utilizing CARES funding. So these buses will actually be utilized for new routes in Goshen established by the Connect Transit Plan. So we're adding this project to the TIP for a total cost of $980,000. And then item B is a transpo item. So Transpo and Niles Dial-A-Ride just recently established their split in 5339 funding. So Transpo received $232,154 in 5339 funds. And this will be utilized for rehabbing and renovating of facilities. So we already had a placeholder in our TIP for this work type. We're just with this item increasing federal funding to reflect the amount that Transpo received through the split. So an increase of federal funding of $72,154. So happy to take questions on items A or B. Otherwise, I'd be asking for your approval of transit resolution 9-23.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, one question on the 980,000 for item A, is that for 2 buses or how many buses? is that?
2 buses. Yeah, that's estimated cost for 2.
Those aren't getting any cheaper.
No, they have not gotten any cheaper. Now that is, our bigger 30-foot bus. Luckily, it's like runaway prices. So
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. And Donnie,
Donnie's got some exciting news today.
looks like it.
You.
I think
Hello,
so.
everyone. I'm here to present resolution 10-23. And what this resolution is seeking your endorsement for MACOG to submit a revised grant application. This was previously submitted earlier this year in January to the Economic Development Administration for the Partnership Planning Program. And one might be like, well, didn't we already do this? Yes, you did. However, the exciting news part is, so obviously you guys are aware, since August of 2011, we have served as the region's economic development district, with you all representing the primary economic interest of the region. Since that time, MACOG has also been trying to coordinate with the EDA's Partnership Planning Program Manager to see what it would take for us to get our grant cycle realigned to match our state fiscal year, which is July 1 to June 30th. Our current grant cycle with EDA for the Partnership Planning Program is April 1 to March 30th. And the reason we wanted to do this is to help us better in preparing our staffing plan and our budget information with calculating for our fringe and indirect rates, because there's that short period where we don't fully match up with our state fiscal year. So this would just help us better prepare for that. And also with the request, we would ask for EDA an additional quarter to cover that period of April to June, which would be that last quarter from July to June. EDA has always told us that they would be happy to do that. However, they would need an increase in their partnership planning allocations to do that. Well, after 12 years with this request, they have finally received an increase in their allocations to support this modification. However, with this modification, we would need to revise our staffing and budget information to reflect our increase in our local match funds. Previously, under the 1-year cycle, our local match was $70,000. On a 3-year cycle, this would be increased to $227,500. So this resolution is seeking your endorsement that we are committing those funds and that it's readily available and it will not be encumbered for the use of EDA's investment in any way, as well as then the other items on the previous resolution authorizing us to administer and submit this grant application. James being executive director as the authorized representative to sign off on behalf of the board. And that's it. So that was not clear, James. Good.
the fun summary of this, for the last 12 years or more, since 2010, we became a district. right? We became an official, well, we worked on that for 20 years. But when EDA finally approved us to be a district, they said, okay, well, with the district status comes money. We said, great. And we fought really hard to get that money for a really long time. But some other districts around the country, they don't have to put in an annual application. They're part of a 3-year program. So that funding comes and you have it for 3 years. So that means less staff time is spent on putting in the same grant application every year and preparing all those things, better reliability. And the giant headache for our accounting staff has been that this is a completely different schedule than any of our other things. Our budget year is July to June. The federal fiscal year is September to August. Right? The calendar year, all of these things, and EDA was April 1, right? Like, it was the weirdest thing. So all of this essentially fixes that. We would get an extra quarter so that we're actually on our real fiscal year and go July to June. So that's good. And instead of having to do an annual application, we are getting an agreement that says we're getting 3 years worth of money. So it's not committing us to more than what we would normally do. The dollar value isn't changing. It is in the total, but it's because it represents 3.25 years. So that's why the dollar values are changing. But like, in the grand scheme of things, it's what we would have done. It's just, instead of asking you for a resolution like we did last month, and then a year from now, and then a year after that, we're just going to ask for this one resolution, and we will finally be in that 3-year program. So the next time we would ask you for this resolution would be 3 years from now. And so it would just make our relationship with EDA a lot easier and better aligned with our fiscal year. So I know it's very technocrat, but it excites me because it's been something that I have.
Shannon, you need to get you out more.
I have decades worth of emails asking for this. So for it to finally happen is exciting.
Motion to endorse.
Second.
We have motion second. Any further discussion?
One question I have, Gene. So I know it's going from, would have been 210 for the 3 years, now it's 227. That's that extra 17 Ks for that extra quarter.
Yeah, the extra quarter.
But so is that money we have to match with money that's coming in for them? Is that money that's coming to us, or we're having to pay that out?
It is a reimbursement program,
Okay.
and it's ugly money in the sense that it's 50-50 money.
Okay.
So, a lot of our other money that we work with is 80-20.
Right.
We'd always love for EDA to consider 80-20, but I think that takes an act of Congress. So that's a little bit outside of our hands. But
You
yeah,
can work on that for
So,
another 12 years.
exactly. But it's not like it's a lump sum match. Okay, this is a reimbursement, and it's not going to be front loaded. It's going to be across those 3 years. So we're really not committing to anything more than we would have naturally committed to. The only potential downside to this is if EDA got a giant influx of money, where then they bumped all the partnership programs up, and instead of providing 70,000, they now wanted to provide 100,000. We might lose out on that opportunity, but I think we could also make a case to modify our existing agreement. So it's very limited risk in the sense that we're not having to disperse that 227 upfront, where if for some reason we didn't want to be a district 2.5 years from now, right, like we would lose that money or anything. This is a reimbursement-based program.
Ugly money. I like that.
It's worth writing down.
Yeah. It's in the acronym dictionary.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Presentation, Mr. Turnwald.
All right. We wanted to make sure that you all had a year-end review for calendar year 2022. First, I wanted to mention that in December of last year, you all approved a new job description, which outlined kind of a realignment of how we're organizationally set up. For many years, Zach has done an amazing job of being our deputy, who kind of oversaw programs, and he's helped those programs blossom and grow and expand to the point now that we need to kind of realign and have directors of each program. And so I'm pleased to let you all know that Zach Trips is moving into our role of Director of Operations, which will be then focused on kind of some big administrative projects and working to find some operational efficiencies on the administrative side of things, as well as then with that, we're promoting Caitlin Stevens to our Director of Transportation and Leah Thill to our Director of Sustainability. We'll also then have 2 opportunities for a Director of Transit and a Director of Community Development, so that all of our programs kind of have a lead person in charge. It'll create a better overall structure for our organization. So each of them are going to work through presenting their areas, the amazing work that our staff has done over the last year. And just as a highlight or summary, a theme, if you will, you'll notice as they discuss, a lot of what our organization does is work on your all's local priorities, the things that you've asked us for help on, especially with working with state and federal agencies. Our role is to convene, to provide data, and to gain resources for this area. Hopefully you'll see that kind of come out in this presentation of what we have accomplished together in 2022. So I think I'm turning it over to Kate.
Good morning. I'd like to start out, I always appreciate kind of reflecting on the impact the federal and local investments have on our transportation network. And you can see here, last year, our region was awarded over $68 million in awards, and that was through 3 different calls, one of them being MACOG's call for projects for the urbanized area. We were able to award $33.8 million in funding for 15 projects, and this includes both new projects as well as existing projects requesting additional funds. And so that call took place earlier in the year than normal, but happy to make those investments, which we'll see kind of through, I think, fiscal year 29, so the next 5 years. Additionally, NDOT held their rule call for projects where $19.5 million was awarded for 6 different projects. And a great other program that our communities have utilized significantly is the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program for road preservation projects. And that totaled $15.1 million in awards. And I'd like to note some of the assistance that we've been able to provide to our communities. We worked with 16 different communities to submit their asset management plans in order to be eligible for that program. We also assisted 4 communities and rated, I believe, over 150 miles of road. And we were able to move that tool from paper version to a digital version, which helped us become a little bit more efficient in that data collection process. But a very useful tool kind of for furthering road preservation in our region. And then in terms of construction, we saw 10 projects go to a letting, so headed towards construction. And that was for a total of $42.4 million last year in construction. Some of those highlight projects, Plymouth, the pedestrian footbridge, as well as Boheim Drive went to a letting. In St. Joseph County, we had a fairly significant letting with McKinley Avenue, which was an added travel lanes and sidewalks project. In Kosciuszko County, we saw County Road 1300 North, a great separation over the railroad. And then in Elkhart County, County Road 40 was the big project, road reconstruction, as well as wider shoulders for non-vehicular traffic. So excited to see kind of those projects come to completion and in the next few years. In addition to kind of the investments that we see, I'd like to highlight some of the transportation planning processes as well as tools that we offer in order to make smarter and more informed decisions. And so one of the largest planning processes that we have in order to be strategic in how we're investing our funds in the transportation network is through the Michiana and the Move 2050 Transportation Plan. So we kicked that off this past year, focusing largely on stakeholder and public engagement. We held a variety of meetings, pushed out surveys, comment maps, and posted pop-up events in order to seek public from our stakeholders as well as the public to ensure that they're incorporated too in this process to make better informed decisions. And we'll be looking to wrap up that planning process towards the end of this year. In addition, we continued our kind of robust traffic counting program. In terms of vehicular counts, we counted over 1,600 sites. Over half of those were done with RoadTube, but a little under half were done with video footage. And so that continues to be a strong asset to the data that we collect. We also expanded on our non-motorized counting program. So we have a variety of permanent trail counters as well as some mobile counters, and we were able to collect counts from 13 different sites over our region. And just a little highlight on that, it's, I think, nice to evaluate kind of the impact and effectiveness that trails have on our region. Some of the regionally significant trails, such as LaSalle Trail, it's in St. Joseph County on the Indiana-Michigan River Valley Trail, or the Pumpkin Vine. Those trails can see upwards of 200 average daily users a day. In some of our more urbanized areas, such as Central Park in Mishawaka, that counter has about 500 average users a day. So our trails are being well used, and I'm excited to continue to expand this program as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight one of the programs that we also worked on developing this year, which was the Technical Urbanism Lending Library. We were able to work with 3 communities, including Plymouth, South Bend, and Warsaw, to utilize temporary supplies for temporary transportation projects. And through that, we're able to evaluate their effectiveness as well as collect public input on how they view those projects. So for Warsaw, we completed a cycle track extension for a few weeks, and then Plymouth and South Bend had traffic calming and pedestrian enhancements through bump outs. So we were able to test those out, get good feedback, and we're looking forward to continuing that program. And just a little plug, we have a trailer full of supplies, and we're happy to come to your communities to test out projects. So we're kind of looking for projects that we would like to complete this year. So that is all I have for the transportation program.
Thank you. Aaliyah?
Good morning. I want to explain a little bit of our sustainability program, which has been growing over the years. I think of it in kind of 4 main focus areas. The first being clean air, which is one of our first focus areas that goes back decades. So we do have partners for clean air luncheon coming up, and I want to remind everyone to check your inbox, and it's link to register. That should have arrived this morning. But clean air is one of our traditional focus areas. Clean transportation has been expanding recently with electric vehicles becoming more cost effective and other alternative fuels. So we've been supporting local governments with technical assistance and grant writing. So through our partnership with Drive Clean Indiana, so you'll see it emphasize a lot of that in this last year. Clean energy is another topic area where we haven't done as much in the last year, but we did kind of shift our Solarize program to Solar United Neighbors. So there wasn't really that much staff time in supporting that. And we were able to assist with 60 new solar projects, mostly solar homes, few businesses in the region last year. In the clean energy topic, we continue to provide technical assistance to tweak zoning codes related to solar. We helped St. Joseph County start to implement the first pollinator-friendly solar project that came under their ordinance, which was the first in the state to put that in place. So we continue to provide technical assistance in that area. Then also clean land, which that's brownfields. The wording doesn't quite fit with those, but clean land is kind of the 4th topic area. So with our brownfields program, we're really excited to almost double the amount of funding that we've had to spend on environmental assessments. So we have secured an additional 500,000, and we spent down the remainder of our $600,000 grant that we've had for the last 3 years. And we've been able to start working on a few new sites with that additional money in Syracuse, in Plymouth, in Goshen, South Bend, and in Elkhart. We've been helping to see if there is contamination. Uncertainty and risk really drives away private investment. So we can partner with local governments and developers to determine whether it's actually contaminated. And in some cases, like a case in Elkhart on Division Street, we sampled 3 times. We sampled to the point that the state felt comfortable with development, that it was safe for residential with no cleanup needed. And that was something that the developer was really happy about. And we've seen that again in Plymouth, where just with a little bit of soil removal by Habitat, now they were able to move forward with building some homes there. So we're really pleased when our funding solves the problem. Sometimes it's a matter of bringing on additional cleanup resources. So we're working to secure some funding to help with cleanup as well. But really pleased with that. And then always great to see our projects. It takes several years, but when they reach the point of going to a groundbreaking in Warsaw, we had the Arnold site break ground for a new affordable housing development there. So they're very pleased to see that old building come down, and look forward to some much needed housing in that area for the workforce. So that's good news on the brownfields front. Moving over to clean transportation a little bit more, we had a stronger emphasis on that with all the federal funding that's been coming out in the area, especially of transportation electrification. So we held 2 workshops at the Studebaker Museum in Goshen, as well as our 2 National Drive Electric Week displays, where we had over 35 vehicles owned locally by just drivers who volunteered their time and come and talk and educate people about that. 2 other things that we're excited about on the funding and infrastructure side is that we were able to finally install 7 new charging stations throughout the region, even in towns like Culver, Plymouth, Elkhart, Warsaw, Mishawaka, South Bend. And so these are in towns where previously there was no charging infrastructure whatsoever, open and available 24/7 to the public. So that's a big deal. And I think in Plymouth, they've seen maybe a little more use than they've expected, because the Plymouth station is getting used more than any of these 7 stations.
By the same vehicles every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Black Jeep.
yeah, there are some unintended consequences of some pricing structures that we're looking at tweaking moving forward, but these things are getting used a lot. So
We have a taco restaurant in town called Mila's, and the whole family has electric cars. They're there more than anybody else. So.
So definitely getting used. So we look forward to a couple more of those last projects being wrapped up. But this was funded by a private settlement called Volkswagen Fund that IDEM is managing. I'm mentioning that because also the electric school bus picture here, that's South Bend just got 2 electric school buses. And those were projects that were funded entirely by private funding. So the Volkswagen program, as well as Indiana Michigan Power through a private settlement under the rest of that, over $800,000, no federal funds in these 2 school bus projects, but there are federal funds available in this next coming year through the Clean School Bus Rebate Program that I know several schools applied for and did not get because it was a lottery system. So that opportunity will be coming back up this year. And then finally, AmeriCorps, I didn't put that in its own topic category because that's very broad, and that's more of a capacity solution to have our members serve in these different areas, as well as economic resilience to help achieve our comprehensive economic development strategy goals, and to provide assistance to local governments directly, maybe Goshen Environmental Resilience, Elkhart Environmental Center, hopefully, as well as nonprofits and others that have needs in these areas of economic resilience and environmental stewardship. So we're very pleased to launch that program last year in the last quarter, and we brought on 6 members. We have an additional 2 starting. We hope to ramp up over the next year where we have 15 people that are serving in this area. So we're continuing to bring on new service sites and to actively recruit members in those areas. So if there are any questions, I guess we'll put that at the end.
Yeah, and one just point of note, Leah plugged the upcoming Partners for Clean Air. if you have any school districts that might be interested in learning about electric school buses, or, could that work for them? I know we work with schools on all sorts of different fuel types. We've worked with bonding on propane, and we're fuel agnostic, but if you are wanting to see electric school bus, or you think your school districts might be interested at that event, for the Partners for Clean Air, one of those school buses will be there, and they can find out it's just another school bus. It's just really quiet, but, so I just put that plug in, because, sometimes, folks really want to kick the tires on one of those vehicles, before they know if it might work for them.
Do you know, when you granted those school buses, were they granted charging stations for the
They
buses
were,
specifically?
that was a component of both programs to help install, so that they had the charging stations in place before the buses arrived.
Yeah, both I&M's money and the Volkswagen Fund does that. On the rebate, if you get the rebate, does that also, or
Yes, you get a certain allocation.
Yeah. It's usually like a percentage. So, yeah.
But the director of transportation for South Bend will be at Partners for Clean Air luncheon, as well as the local driver, so you can get all those perspectives on the use of these.
Great. Eastern development is the next topic. And so, we've done a lot of work here for the years to grow this. And this last year was a little bit of a year for us. Kind of a big highlight. There's top number. This last year, we helped local communities secure about $2.5 million funding from federal or state programs. So that included right at the very end of 21, but I tagged it on here for 22, was for the Kosciuszko County got working with Okra on the Help Hoosiers During Legacy program, which comes with $1 million with Okra funds, which they are wrapping up that plan. It was like 12-month process. They're wrapping that up now and getting ready to go into implementation for that. And then the town of Milford also received $90,000 from Okra to do a master water utility study. And they're in the process of getting that done now. And we've been fortunate enough to be the administrator of that project. So that's been a really great experience in working with the town on that. And then Middlebury actually received two different funding opportunities. Again, one at the end of 21, which is a $50,000 grant from the USDA, Department of Agriculture, for rural business development. And that they basically had worked on creating a business incubator in downtown Middlebury to help foster local businesses and grow that. And they actually, I was able to visit this last week, and they had 3 cohorts or individuals going to go through that process this last year. And they have spots in downtown at the chamber's office where they have the businesses this year. There's a coffee roaster and coffee shop, and then a woodworking shop as well. And so they're ramping up for another year as well in that. So that's growing and doing well. And then Middlebury also got an EDA grant to do a relocation of a lift station to help support more industrial development on the south end of town. And all familiar with Middlebury, again, there's a lot of growth and opportunity there. So that was a really great item. We got $1.4 million to do that work. And that's right now working on the construction documents that will be bid here in this next year. So we'll see that going on, and we're working with them to help administer some of those grant items in that process as well. So that's been a really exciting, and then seeing that fruit of some of the planning initiatives. So speaking of planning, and this year we had a lot of work done in planning in 21 and 22. We wrapped up 5 different plans here this year. Beginning of the year, we had resiliency plan, which talked about our kind of response to COVID and economic development and kind of how we grow from there. And we also completed up our broadband study, which both of those are on our website. And we talk about where broadband is available, what we can do to help improve that access. And I know we've been discussing that a lot here, and there's more to come in this next year about broadband. We also did 2 park plans for towns of Waukerusa and Freeman in the spring. And then we helped Kosciuszko County throughout the last year complete their forward Kosciuszko County comprehensive plan as well. And so that was about an 18-month process. We worked to partner with them and a private consultant firm to wrap up. And then this last year, we also started renew plans. And so continuing with Kosciuszko County, to kind of follow up to that was a parks master plan. So a lot of work again to, they established a park board, and they wanted to kind of look to access park funding through the Department of Natural Resources. So we helped them through that process. That is right now out for public comment here now, and kind of wrapping up here this next month. And then we also began comprehensive plans for the town of Culver and the city of Plymouth as well. So those will be wrapping up this next year. Again, we had a lot of engagement, a lot of opportunities for public to be involved and getting in the community. So we're looking forward to another big year this next year. Then for transit, again, a lot of activity and things going on. So the big highlight here, our Connect Transit Plan, as you guys have been reminded about nearly every month for the last year or so about that going on. So we know that that's coming up for final approval this next month. But again, kind of highlights from that, we've had over 1,500 survey responses over those 3 rounds of public engagement. We had around 400 people attend our public meetings, focus groups, community workshops, and things like that. So we had a lot of engagement activity around that plan, and it's going to really help set us up for a better future in transit as we work together with Transpo and Interurban Trolley on that. Our transit ridership, you can see there, again, it is down from our peak a few years ago, but we have definitely beginning to see that growing since the COVID-19 pandemic, and kind of seeing that progress further. And then we also were able to utilize a full year's worth of the Token Transit app to sell and use passes on a phone. So this is in partnership with Transpo, and we actually were able to sell over 4,000 passes through that. So basically, you can go on your phone on the app and you can purchase that, and you can use that without actually having to get a paper pass or afraid of losing that there. So it's been a really awesome program for that. So I'm sorry. And lastly, we were able to actually replace some of our fleet for our access vehicle. We heard today we're working on that for our buses, but we were able to get some vans for that service as well. And the last section then is on administration, which really focuses a lot on public engagement and outreach there. But before I get to that, I did want to highlight, we always like to kind of acknowledge our years of service and milestones there. This last year, Leah Phil reached her 5-year milestone, which was really awesome there. So we heard from her a minute ago there. So we really appreciate every year that people are here and put forth good effort for our organization. On Facebook, we kind of grow our reach and our influence there. We had between that and LinkedIn, we had over 1,000 followers and likes on those pages. This year we reached a milestone. We got over 500 followers on our Facebook page, so that was kind of a good milestone we wanted to hit. You can see how we've grown on this chart over the last several years of those platforms reaching more people. Our website and other items like that still getting good use. Nearly 60,000 people visit our websites every year, or this last year. One big highlight I want to focus on is our events and activities. So we had over 100 events. And when I say events, these are public outreach activities, either focus groups, events that large people are invited to, and other items where public members of the public are included in that. So we had a lot of activity this last year. You can see there. And so with over 1,500 participants, again, as you saw, we had several comprehensive plans going on. We had our Connect Transit Plan, a lot of work in brownfield, and some of that items there. So we had a lot of engagement this last year. Really great to see. So that's my really quick summary of engagement and administration items there. I'll turn things back over to James.
And with that, like I said, hopefully you see those themes, that the 3 things, if you boil this down to our most simplest, is that we convene people, whether that's around a topic or bringing the public together. So we convene, we provide data, we provide resources. And those resources are usually us helping you all access state and federal funding. You see the millions of dollars that they've talked about today around these kind of 4 major topics of transportation, community development, transit, and sustainability. So if you're ever trying to tackle a topic and one of those 3 things are coming up and you might need some help, always feel free to give us a call to try and help out with those things. So that's the highlight of 2022 in review.
Thank you. Appreciate all you do, everyone. So staff update.
First, if you're not aware, Purdue Road School is very fast approaching. And if you plan to spend the night in Lafayette, you may have to do that in Terre Haute at this point. But Purdue Road School is March 14th and 15th at Purdue. It's a great gathering of all things transportation in Indiana. And if you haven't attended, I would always highly suggest it. It's a great set of resources and learning and just being able to see folks in this industry. Everything pavement related and transportation related will be there in Indiana. So if you're going to be there, stop by, say hi. Many of our staff will be there. But FYI, March 14th and 15th, many of our staff might be there, so it might be a little bit difficult to get a hold of during those 2 days. So just an FYI. We've got two other updates that I think Allie was gonna let us know about.
Just a quick update, wanted to make everyone aware that our next quarterly tracking and review meeting where we walk through all of our different federal aid projects will be happening April 11th. So your staff will be receiving correspondence about this in the coming weeks. And then just wanted to kind of give a quick update on our long-range transportation plan. So really since this past summer, we've been focusing on one, trying to understand our current transportation network, and then also trying to understand future growth scenarios with the goal of being able to identify needs and deficiencies within our transportation network. And a big component of this, as Caitlin alluded to, is been public engagement, public and stakeholder engagement. So to date with our long range plan, we've held stakeholder meetings in each of our counties. Again, wanted to thank those of you that were able to participate in those. We've put out a public facing survey as well as an interactive comment map. So people could go in and leave location specific comments, both good or bad. We've also attended several different pop-up events. One, to just inform the public of our planning process, but then also trying to solicit more survey responses. So now that we're kind of wrapping up this first phase of engagement, wanted to kind of highlight some key questions and the responses. So I'll note that we received about 215 survey responses for this round, which I would say is pretty average for our engagement. I'd say one thing that we kind of struggled with is just the general survey fatigue. So lots of planning happening, lots of surveying. So I think everyone is just a little overwhelmed right now. So I think that might have added to it, but I'm still happy with the 250 responses we did get. So one of the first questions that was asked in our survey is what people's transportation choices are based on. So really trying to get a feel for what factors are considered when people are moving around our region. So the number one response was availability of options. So if someone doesn't have a car or a bicycle, how they get around is going to be pretty limited, whether that be to public transit or walking or rideshare programs. And then the second highest response was distance or proximity to your destination. So for example, I walk to work every day because I live just a couple blocks from work. So I would say that distance to my location is my number one determining factor in how I get around. But if someone, lives 5, 10, 15 miles away, that's probably not the most feasible option. So I think these two top responses definitely make sense. And then the other question we asked is which regional goals are most important to people? So the number one response was environmental stewardship. So the use and protection of our responsible use and protection of our natural environment. And then other top responses was economic vitality and safety. So I think this question is really important when trying to understand what people prioritize, also gives us a feel for what types of projects should be prioritized in the future. So for example, right now we're funding our first set of electric vehicle charging stations. But seeing that environmental stewardship is very important to a lot of people, maybe that's, types of projects that we should be considering more in the future, similar to safety as well. So this kind of really gets at what's important to people. And then the last question I wanted to highlight was which transportation improvements are most important to you? So the #1 response was creating walkable communities. And then the second highest response was creating dedicated bike lanes. So obviously this complete streets aspect is very important to people. Another thing I thought that was interesting with this question, so we asked about improving connectivity between communities within our region, and then also improving connectivity with our region to outside communities. And improving connectivity within our region was higher selected than improving connectivity from our region to nearby cities. And then also when asked about maintaining infrastructure, maintaining our existing infrastructure was selected higher than investing in new construction. So again, getting at kind of what's important to people and what we should be prioritizing in the future. So again, kind of just really going through all of the data that we have, trying to make sense of everything. And our next step is moving into really finalizing what we believe to be the needs and deficiencies of our transportation network. And then with that, we'll be able to move into identifying specific projects or strategies for the future. So we're looking to engage our stakeholders again, thinking kind of end of March timeline. So do please look in your inbox for correspondence related to this, but happy to take any questions, but that's just kind of where we're at with our long range plan right now.
So those meetings in March, will you do those in different communities, or how are you going to look at that?
Yeah, we're trying, and I would love your guys' feedback, but we're trying to determine if we should do kind of one in each county like we did the first round, if we should limit it to 2 and kind of find something on the border of our urban and rural counties. But yeah, I think we're kind of leaning towards 2 meetings. Yeah. Great, thank you guys.
Hello again, everyone.
David?
I haven't been to a in-person meeting for policy board in quite a while. So just a reminder, I'm David Harder. I work in traffic data. And one of the exciting things that we've had the opportunity to put forth just over the past year is updates to our maps and our programs that we have on our website, maps.macog.com. If you haven't been there recently, please do check it out. Besides just the GIS portion, which we house on our website, a couple of different features that we've also added now, our bridge condition story map, as well as our dashboard, and then our crash dashboard, which encompasses the fatal and incapacitating crashes all across our region just over the past 3 years, so since 2019 through 2021. And we're currently working on the 2022 data to eventually get to the 2023 data. So because of all the data that comes in, 60,000 crashes over that 3-year period of 2019 through 2021. It's taken a little time to go through and limit to what we have on our website. But just to point out a couple features, in particular, our story map for our bridge conditions, you'll notice a couple graphs, and these were pulled directly from the story map themselves. So just to put in perspective about how much deck area that we have that encompasses the MACOG region, local bridges versus the NDOT maintained bridges. You can see there on the left-hand side of the screen. And then on the right side, this constitutes over, since 2017 through 2021, the condition of the bridges all across the MACOG region. So this includes our NDOT bridges and then our local bridges as well. And you kind of get a feel for green being better, red meaning poor condition bridges according to the actual deck area. For the most part, it's decreased. So our bridges are getting better. Our structures are becoming more sound, which obviously means everyone's safer on our roadways. Particular with the actual dashboard itself, you can access so much information based on the filters that we have, whether the actual identification number from the MBI database or even a local number, because all our bridges have local numbers as well. You can also check in by the facility carried, as well as just zooming in and zooming out of the map, finding different options for countywide owner, whether it be local or NDOT, and then even by town or LPA as well. You'll be able to get a good feel just how well bridges are doing in our region or in your local community. One that I'm more particularly proud of, because I built this from scratch and it's been a learning curve over the past, I would say since December, when I started this project, is the crash database. And again, I'm going to stress it so many times that you see the number 4,000 compared to the 60,000 number that I've mentioned earlier. This just includes fatal and catastrophic injuries versus the possible, the property damage only, as well as non-incapacitating injuries. So we've actually broken that down, and we've come up with about 4,100 crashes from 2019 through 2021. You can see the graphs on the side of the screen. We've also included a breakdown for our non-motorized, which includes pedestrian, horse and buggy, as well as bicyclists there on the screen. And you can interact with that specifically with the filters that are on the right side of the screen. If you zoom in, if you change filters, all the information on the left-hand side does change, whether it be the year-by-year crashes, whether it be the percentage of crashes, and then the color coding you see as well. You can break it down by injury status, fatalities and incapacitating injuries, collision width, whether it be those three types of non-motorized crashes, along with school buses, which majorly important, especially in years past, since we've tried to limit those vulnerable passengers, those children trying to get to school. We also have semi-trucks, so tractor trailers, and obviously the other vehicles, so just a vehicle-on-vehicle accident. We've also got collision years. You can break it down by year, by county, by community. So if it's in a city, if it's, you can check in outside of the city, so it's broken down by county as well. Just for instance, you can break it down by just Mishawaka, South Bend in St. Joseph County, or you can check out the outlying areas by selecting just St. Joseph County, anything outside of the city limits. Primary factor and manner of collision, those are what the reporting officer will put. So if it's a head-on collision, if it's a rear-end collision, if it's a right-angle crash, you'll be able to find that. And one that I just added within the past week is roadway owner. So that's NDOT roads versus local city roads and even private roads. And I'm actually going through, I spent the morning doing that this morning, going through and breaking that down even further.
So can I ask a
Yeah,
quick
go
question
ahead.
on that?
Yeah.
So it looks like the toll road has been free of accidents. Is that because it was excluded, or is it just based on my vision?
And this is just based on the filters. So what I've done just in this graphic is filtered by bicycle, horse and buggy, and pedestrian.
Oh,
And because of that, we haven't seen the crashes on the toll road. However, if we go back a slide, you'll be able to tell, and I know it's hard to see on the smaller screen, but there have been crashes on I-80, 90 that are highlighted on here. And I'm getting a little premature on this, but after the meeting, I'll stick around. So if you want to play around with the dashboard in real time, you'll be able to kind of get a feel for it. Otherwise, you'll be able to go to maps.macog.com to check out.
I actually find this fascinating, and the only other thing that I might ask to kind of keep on the radar screen is we have had a significant increase in hazardous material transport throughout Elkhart County on our roadways. I'd imagine we're not the only ones, and it's not necessarily just the interstate.
Sure. Right.
For everybody else, general expectations of 5% increase in Elkhart County. We've had over 13% increase in hazardous materials passing through. Don't know if that's something that you can add on, and as we can watch for safety.
Yeah, and a lot of that's going to be based on what's in these crash reports. So it'll be what happens on the front end. So the reporting officer or whatever agency decides to put that forth. So it's whatever's in the report is what we can pull. We can also go to various sites. One that in particular that we can cross check is Federal Rail. Obviously, rail's been hot, as we know recently. So we can actually pull the data from them, and if there's any other information that they can provide for us, certainly we can include it in a dashboard like
Yeah, I'm
this.
talking about roads though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the things we would now in this, it probably won't tell you if it had hazardous material. because that is always going to be dependent on
I,
what the officer provides.
Yeah.
But in this, you would be able to see where all those serious injury crashes occurred with semi trucks. Right, and that can start to lead you down a path of trying to find those areas where it's challenging or there may be safety challenges for truck traffic in general. And if we're making it safer for truck traffic in general, we're probably also making it safer for truck traffic carrying hazardous material. So it's a little bit of the, inference game, but you could probably work with that.
thank you.
Yep.
And one other thing that I do want to mention regard to this information, it's always changing. So we're continually updating this. And as I said, I've been working on it this morning, so it's on a daily basis that this is changing. I appreciate any feedback that you can provide to us because we're providing this information for you. We've got this treasure trove of so much data that we want to provide. So we want to get it out the best way we can for each and every one of you. So if you get a chance, if you can stick around after the meeting, take a look. If not, maps.macog.com, and you can click on our dashboards. And by the way, it's still exciting news because we've got more dashboards to come, more data to put forth in the months ahead. So please, please, please keep checking back and be sure to give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And we want to make it easier for everyone and, the most important data for everyone too.
Thanks, David. And just like a way that I used it, that bridge dashboard. So we have 843 bridges in our 4-county region. That's NDOT bridges and local bridges. 6% of them are considered poor condition, where one of those P4 elements are a 4 or under. Okay, that's 51 bridges. Of those 51 bridges, if you look at the ones that are driven the most, so 1,000 annual average daily traffic, that's 24 bridges. So we have 24 bridges that are regularly driven in poor condition. 17 of those have a project, program, or in the works. One of them was the project that Elkhart County just submitted to NDOT for fiscal 2018 funding. So it helps us tell a better story around why that project should be selected by NDOT, or what do we have to do to figure out those other 7 bridges that don't have a project program currently, right? It can make some of our data a little bit more actionable, or that we can convey what we're already doing, because of those 6%, 17, the biggest ones, 17 out of 24 of them are being worked on or have projects coming up in the next 5 years. So I think that's a very compelling message. We can do that we have the bridge data, we have the crash data. Probably the next set of ones that'll come out is a census compiler is what I'd call it, where there are these key data things that people want to know about our communities or about our region. And so it will be on there. It will have a profile page for every one of our communities, all 4 counties, all 7 cities, and all 29 towns, where it'll give the kind of key information. So whenever you're doing reports or grants or those kind of things, it'll have those indicators up there. And then the other big one that'll come out is pavement. So you'll be able to see those PASER ratings for the entire region, filter that by community and those kind of things. So those are some of the big ones that come out that you can play around with. But I think it helps us provide compelling stories to what we're doing and why we're doing collectively to improve those conditions.
Will PASER still be a separate report we can draw from, or is it going to be wrapped up into this?
It'll still be separate,
Yeah.
of course, but we're also showing it on a regional scale, but you could filter it by local community and all those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll still be able to give that during the end of the year when we do asset management plans and whatnot, to be able to provide that information as well.
Thanks, David.
I think that concludes our staff update today.
Okay. Privilege of the floor or public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for adjournment.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. April 12th, and we'll be back here. Next meeting, April 12th. Zach, can I just hit end call?
Yep.